Hello and welcome to this episode on the power of sacred travel. Advance spiritually through epic physical experiences like traveling to Egypt or hiking the Camino. When it comes to epic expansion and all the things like being connected to source every day, your thriving mission, having loving connections, and what the guides and I call multi-D abundance, having an overflowing abundance and being resourced in energy, relationships, time, finances, and also creating this exponential expansion like yesterday without guessing if your inner work is making a difference, then there may be one very key path that you may not have considered. And that is the power of sacred travel. Conventional wisdom really conditions us to believe that we're destined for incremental growth and that we can, incremental growth with a lot of hard work. And there's also this myth that, or what the guides and I call an illusion lie, that you can't consciously create or you can't trigger a quantum leap. You can't purposefully create a quantum leap. Like a quantum leap just seems to happen to you. Where actually in this episode, we're going to demystify that illusion lie, that you're destined for only incremental growth and that you can't create a quantum leap. Because I've got something here, the power of sacred travel, share the punchline first, that in my experience and taking more than a dozen sacred journeys to Egypt, dozens of in-person retreats in France, and also hiking the Camino, these are guaranteed environments for quantum leap. And for myself and for our clients and our partners that we travel with, that the power of sacred travel is a guaranteed quantum leap. It's an environment where there's going to be exponential expansion. There's going to be a way that you consciously create a lot of rapid growth. And we're going to unpack a little bit why that is the case. So when we talk about advancing spiritually, so this is turning into a myth busters. I could have called it like the 8 myths to why incremental growth isn't all that's possible. Yet there's also, when it comes to spiritual advancement, there's this illusion lie around, in order to advance spiritually, we need to meditate. We need to really be spending hours in the akasha and have a rocking practice. And although these things help, and personally I do them, there does come a time where what got you here won't get you there. And I want to underscore why our spiritual advancement is important. Because for a lot of us, it's kind of integral to our reason for incarnating, our mission in this lifetime. Yeah, it's important to really go a little bit deeper. Now, why is our spiritual advancement important to really amplifying our mission, and why it is that we're here? Because when we're connected to source and we grow spiritually, we're not being waylaid by our body, mind, and emotion filters, or sidetracked from our mission because we're down a rabbit hole of those slower vibrational body, mind, and emotions. So our spiritual advancement it keeps us in a place of high vibe, in a place of receptivity, in a place of being connected, in a place of also having inspiration. And there's an emotional sovereignty that begins to happen as we're advancing spiritually. Plus, it just feels fantastic. It feels really great. And we're coming into whatever we're up to from this place of being buoyed, from this place of being resourced, from this place of overflowing. So back to the illusion lie that what does it take to advance spiritually, equaling endless hours of meditating and having a rocking daily practice of appreciation or journaling or whatever that is. All those things work. And like I said, I do them. However, this illusion lie that you need to use spiritual tools to advance spiritually, like you fight fire with fire, it does work and it gets us to a certain point. Yet if you're tuning in here to this podcast, it's most likely not your first rodeo. You've been on your personal growth journey for a long time. You probably have a wall of certificates and modalities that you do or that you share with others, or books that you've read. And so it's like that next elevation, that next level up in your spirituality, most likely is going to take something different to go from that incremental to that exponential. It's like, and this is also what we're talking about, physical experiences, yet it's also like an exercise where if you're doing a steady state, at some point you get into a gray zone and you're no longer really building muscle or burning fat, or there's just like this status quo. And so when you have interval training, where let's say you do an impulse of physical exertion for 45 seconds or 30 seconds, and then you rest for 15 seconds, it breaks up that status quo. It breaks up the set point. It breaks up my temperature is set for 70 degrees or incremental growth in order to be set to quantum leaps. So the spiritual truth is that in order to advance spiritually, especially at a certain point in your elevation and consciousness, you need to dive deep into the physical. You need to dive deep into the descension spiral and use your physical plane environment as a playground for your evolution and consciousness. And this is core to what we're up to in Divine Transmissions, whether you look at our Magdalene Codes program, which is all about actualizing and manifesting resources for your mission, or you look at our Sahu program, which is about everyday embodied enlightenment. Or if you look at what we're talking about here too, our in-person retreats to Egypt or to the Camino when they're available. This is really using the physical plane, physical experiences as a way to express what it is that you know to be true on the higher planes. Because that's why we're here. That's why we incarnated to create in the physical plane, to be able to expand in our daily lives. So in addition to this being a part of our everyday life, like, yes, we have our spiritual tools, yet the key to that everyday embodied enlightenment that really makes all the difference is sprinkling into what you're already doing, your spiritual and your material growth, these epic physical experiences, and especially immersion like experiences. And what we're talking about here is the power of sacred travel. And the power of sacred travel is like, there's so much about it that I could share as to why this really works. And I want to go into like my top 3 reasons why going to Egypt and the Camino are in my top 5 experiences, and is one of my pro tips for having a quantum leap. It's really like, again, if I look back on my journey, our client's journey, in order to be able to say, okay, I know it's a next natural step to really have a rapid acceleration in my consciousness and in the physical plane, resources and your mission, like to have kind of a sure thing in your back pocket is pretty, it's a pretty cool thing. So the 3 reasons that I want to go into why sacred travel to Egypt and hiking the Camino are in my top 5 experiences are, number 1, I've already shared why that it's a guaranteed quantum leap in a short amount of time. Now, I want to tell a little story here, and I know I'm talking about sacred travel to Egypt and to the Camino, and yet really to apply this to you, what I'm really talking about above all is physical experiences. It's physical experiences, and especially highly curated, experiential, tangible, physical plane experiences that we have that make the difference. So when I got my horse, I had ridden a lot when I was a child, horses, like mega, and had a pretty, let's say, advanced level in terms of competitions and winning ribbons and trophies. And that's not why I did it. It was really natural for me. And then I had a lot, like decades of not riding. And so when I got my horse, there's like one pathway, which is, okay, I can have a riding lesson with an instructor once a week for, let's say I do that once a week over a year for 52 times in a year. And then of course, like I may choose to ride my horse on my own. So let's say I'm doing that 3 times a week at the most. And that's pretty consistent. That is going to create a deeper connection. So that's one pathway. And let's say, and that's kind of like when I'm talking about adding to what you're already doing, you probably have some version of working with a mentor once a week. Maybe you're in one of our programs where we're working together and we're meeting once a month or 3 times a month, or it depends on the container, or your daily meditation, your daily routine. Like you have this kind of regular practice. And it just happened that our riding instructor was leading a 5-day trail ride in southern France, where we live in the Luberon Mountains. And so I decided to go on this 5-day trail ride. Now, riding for 5 days with my horse sped up it was a quantum leap. It sped up the acceleration of us getting to know one another, of the process of me finding my seat, getting to know her cues, her getting to know me. And there was also just a lot of fun. The group experience, which is bringing me to one of my top 3 reasons why sacred travel to Egypt and Camino is so powerful, and also these immersion type experiences. And now the in-person retreats are like back on the docket. It's also very exciting. Like a lot of us are craving coming together. Is that there was also, it was like I wasn't doing it alone. It was a trail ride. There were maybe, let's say, 12 of us. We've done it, more than once. So there's different sizes. Yet there was also like my horse, Ukita, was also with other horses. And there was the like exploring new terrain, and it was challenging. And it was varied. It was an integral training. Sometimes we were going up the mountain, which personally I love, of whether it's hiking or riding, and sometimes it's going down. And in that co-leadership between me and the horse, if we're using that also as an example of our connection to source and why physical experiences and our relationships really advance our connection to source and spirituality, like there were times where I absolutely just needed to trust Ukita. Like it was her job to, I remember one time we were in this ravine, and it was just a waterway, I think we'd gotten lost or something. And, it was just my job to sit there, to, bend over to not get branches. And that was like, okay, partnering with her, letting her lead to find the trail. And there were other times where it was absolutely essential for me to be leading, for me to be guiding, for me to say, okay, go this way, because I'm up here, there's a branch. You don't see the branch from your vantage point. And that 5 days together was a quantum leap. Like, even if we would have had 3 lessons a week, we wouldn't have gotten in a year where we got to in 5 days. So to be clear, I'm a proponent of both. But what we're talking about here is adding immersions, adding pulses, adding sacred travel, adding curated physical experiences that create a quantum leap. So that includes the second one that I already was starting to talk about, is that when we get out of our regular environment, when we travel, this example of going on this trail ride, like being in the temples of Egypt, oh my goodness, it's like unlike anything else. It widens our perspective. It opens our heart. It gets us out of habitual routines, and it cultivates a deep community and friendship. And I love that as well, because, I went to summer camp as a kid, and I'm blessed to have had that experience, and also went to college. Like there are those times where you have a lot of community, and you're meeting new individuals, and like just the luxury of that. And also to come together, because sometimes in our spiritual advancement, it is so much about us and the divine, and we're on the leading wave. And so to gather with others that have that same momentum, it's the same thing with my horse, to be in the group of the other horses, so that when they were hiking up a really hard mountain, there's an added momentum by them doing it together. There's an added layer as well from the horse that's leading and the horse that's behind, in the communication that's happening. So there's another reason why I love group experiences in general. Yet that opening of the perspective, especially when we find ourselves in a plateau, or there's a narrow vision, or there's this kind of set point or habitual conditioning. So my top 3 reasons: number 1, I've shared already, which is it's a guaranteed quantum leap. Number 2 is that it opens the heart, and we have this experience of being community. And number 3 is that we're using the physical plane of an extraordinary experience, or an out of the everyday kind of experience, to go into a temple or walking in the woods on the Camino. And then that really brings our body with us. It brings the physical plane along with us. It's in our cellular memory, and then so it's integrated. So for example, like when we go to Egypt and we're in a temple, and then we go home from Egypt, our body has had that experience. Our body has been in that temple. There's a way that the power spots imbue and add and amplify our fields. It builds our spiritual bodies to be in these temples and to experience these activations. And the same thing if we're hiking the Camino and there's that path of thousands of pilgrims that have done it before us, and yet it's still a stretch. Like the body and the physical plane and the experience, all of it, being in nature, the food, the camaraderie, the like going beyond a 30-minute workout or a 1-hour riding lesson or a 1-hour coaching session. Like it has this cumulative effect that is exponential, and also something that I feel like is overlooked, especially in the way that we're conditioned around spiritual growth and the way that we may have developed our current level of connection with source through more spiritual tools, which we're going to be doing those. We have them in our toolbox, yet to add in the physical plane to enhance our physical endurance, to have the playground of our daily life be what creates that next up level and that quantum leap, is just incredible. And I really, tuning in here because maybe you've been to Egypt. And I know when we first started leading groups to Egypt, our website was Egypt is Calling. So there can also be this sense of a divine appointment with sacred travel, and the power of sacred travel can also come from that, a divine appointment where we've had past lives that are connected to the wisdom of those places like Egypt or France, where there's also a divine appointment to meet a temple, to meet. We usually think about meeting individuals, but like to meet the being of light that's a temple, to sail along the Nile, to be immersed also in a culture that's very different than than our everyday culture, that can be so expansive and such a contribution to our lives. And especially the immenseness, the epicness. Like I'm just having this body memory of being at the Temple of Karnak, for example, and the temple columns are ginormous, and just like looking up at the columns, there's just something about the grandeur of being in the temple that is so beautiful. Or standing in front of Sekhmet, the goddess of compassion and healing through altrition or destruction, the lioness, and like just standing in her presence where she's been in the same place for thousands of years. So she's on the ley lines, because the other power of sacred travel is that these sacred sites are on certain ley lines, and there's this recalibration of our own ley lines in our bodies. And yeah, just standing in front of Sekhmet is just gives me chills. There's such a transmission of fierce unconditional acceptance. And so there's so many stories and really quantum leaps in consciousness that comes from this sacred travel, and you may be finding that you have a divine appointment or a calling, that Egypt is calling, or that Camino is on your bucket list. And so, yeah, I'm just tuning in here. If the guides want to come in and say anything, yeah, it feels like they're going to come in just for a minute or two. Hello, dear ones. This is Thoth, the Magdalens, and the Tri, and the temples of light, beings of light, and the how to say, the path of the Camino, being of light, that is in southern France, moving more into the forefront of this divine transmission. And what we would share is that you are a power site. You are a site of the divine. When you journey to other power sites for the purpose of your elevation, your transformation, you reclaim more of your natural potency and your natural capacity to love and to be love. You are incarnate. You are in the physical plane. You are a light and a love and divine being in the physical plane. So when you leverage your physical experiences as a way of bringing more consciousness into your physical experiences, like up-leveling or tuning your body to higher states of consciousness, or in what we're speaking about here, having a journey to a sacred site, there is this reminding of your system that you are not only your body, only your mind, only your emotions, yet you are an integrated divine power spot. So we are placing the invitation for those of you that are called to explore journeying to Egypt, the Camino, and also our Sahu year-long program, to be using the physical plane for massive spiritual advancement, which creates exponential expansion in the physical plane. It is always a joy to commune with you, and we are extending our love and appreciation to you for your contribution to the evolution in consciousness. All is light and love, and we are all. Danielle here, and this feels like a beautiful place to wrap up this episode on the power of sacred travel and advancing spiritually through using epic physical experiences like journeying to Egypt or the Camino. So if you're feeling called to take Egypt or the Camino off your bucket list and get started on your packing list, invite you to either PM me, or you can go to our website, daniellehoffman.com, And we have an events section there that you can find out about our current events. And you can always email my team at team@divinetransmissions.com. So as we're wrapping up here, just inviting you to consider, what physical experience can you add to your life to have a quantum leap in your consciousness? Well, thanks for tuning in, and see you in the next episode.